I know why it's there because it's.
Good morning.
Good morning. How are
How we
you?
know? I'm really good. How are you all?
Good.
Good. Tell you what I'm going to do. Keith, I'm going to make you the host of this meeting.
Ah.
It's already live. It's already recording. And I'm going to make you the host so I can head into the office.
All right, sounds good. Thank you.
Hold
Have a
on.
good day.
Yep, you too.
How's the family,
All right.
Tim?
Their dad got home late last night, so he's resting up, and everybody else seems to be doing pretty good. So,
Did your mom end up?
Morning.
morning.
I'm gonna practice the screen share thing here real quick, make sure it works and it gets the right thing. Y'all seeing the second slide, or y'all seeing just the primary slide?
Primary.
slide.
Good morning.
Good morning,
Morning.
Chief.
How is everyone?
Good.
Seems I just saw a lot of you a couple of hours ago.
True.
Got a little nap.
Tim,
I got a little nap in and we're back at it.
that's right. Tim, just delighted to hear the news about your dad getting home. Congratulations.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Well, I think this is everyone, and we're a minute early, but Ms. Hambrick, welcome to the fire committee, and we're delighted to have you, and hopefully try to get you up to speed a little bit about our operations and what we got going on, and answer any questions you might have.
Thank you so much. Glad to be here.
I sent you kind of what we'll cover today in some detail. I don't think we'll do too much of a deep dive into some of the content of the presentation, but I think it'll give an opportunity to glance over a lot of that, dive into where we need to dive into, and clearly Assistant Chief Gifford Thompson, Mark, or the mayor can add any additional information as we move along with anything. But Mayor, do you need to cover anything about the committee or what we do?
Just first, make sure Andrew's got us recording and broadcasting.
He does. He made me the administrator and then he left. So
Okay.
We're all set up. It shows that we're recording and we're good.
Great. Willow, as I've explained before, we have 4 standing council committees. Each of those committees is comprised of 2 council members and the mayor as an advisory committee to work with the chief and his 2 assistant chiefs. And by the way, we're real proud. We just recently came to this structure. We asked Chief Colson to do the impossible job of serving as acting chief for 6 full months without an assistant chief. But we recently resolved that, and we're delighted to bring on Chief Gifford from an operational point of view, and Chief Thompson from a training and code enforcement point of view. So we think that structure fits us very well, and we're finally staffed for them to do the work that we've expected them to do. Typically, Willow, the two council members will kind of discuss between themselves who they would like to be chair of the committee. Since I serve on all the committees, it seems appropriate that a council member serve as chair, just to kind of give structure to the meeting. And so I'll first leave that to you and Mark, since this is a newly formed committee. And how you all would like to proceed with that, Mark?
It doesn't matter to me, Mayor. If Mrs. Hambrick would like to do that, she's more than welcome. If not, I'll take it if she doesn't want it.
Mark, since you've been on the committee, I would feel best if you chaired, since you have more of a context for many of the issues that'll come up. So please chair the committee if you would.
Okay.
We'll do that by acclamation. And, so, Mark, I know that Chief Colson has an agenda for us, primarily to give an overview of the department and its structure, to renew your understanding and to help Willow's understanding. But I'll turn it over to you to run, and you and Chief Colson can do as you see fit with the next hour or so.
Sounds good. Mark,
Okay.
you got anything, or you want me to just roll into the presentation?
If you want to go ahead and begin the presentation, that's fine.
All right. Again, like I say, we'll take this as slow as we need to. You know, slow me down, stop if anybody has any questions or comments they would like to add. Screen share here. Has everyone got that?
Yes.
All right, so just kind of, we'll run through, give a little bit of overview of our service area. Some of these slides will be new for the mayor and Mr. Showalter, but you know, the content they're familiar with. But just for everyone's information, that we as a city fire department cover 16 square miles, what is considered the Georgetown city limits. Roughly a population of about 35,000. I'm not sure when the new census numbers will exactly come out, but we expect that to obviously grow. We do enter into an interlocal agreement, work with the county fire department on a daily basis, and help them in certain areas of the county where we're closer, and also on structure fires, we'll send them one or two companies, and they'll always send us at least one. We can ask for more, they can ask for more, but we have a general understanding and agreement in certain areas to respond certain equipment. And that covers the entire county, 285 square miles and a population of 56,000, which is obviously expected to grow as well. Just some numbers we've actually tried to dig into and find recently. I feel comfortable in some of their accuracy. I would question some of the others, but from various sources, feel like they're fairly reliable in the fact that we have, 10,500 roughly single family dwellings, almost 5,000 multifamily apartment dwellings, 1,400, almost 1,500 office or commercial properties, and then 36 industrial facilities that we protect in our immediate service area, the 16 square miles. One thing that we did get recently was accepted into the NFPA Community Risk Assessment Program, and being a part of that will give us much truer information to work with. I'm not saying this isn't correct, but depending on who you ask or what avenue you take, you do get some different numbers on some of these things. So I do think these are fairly accurate, but I am excited that program should give us more accurate information.
Willow, where we list here an interlocal agreement with the Scott County Fiscal Court on fire service, in the fire area, that takes the form of an automatic aid agreement where we respond in certain areas immediately, they respond in certain areas immediately. And that automatic aid agreement has served us pretty well. As you get further into this committee assignment, the chief and the assistant chiefs can help you and us understand some of the nuances of the way that works, and various things that we have to work on from time to time. But in general, the philosophy behind that automatic aid agreement is that we should never have a situation where a city fire truck has to drive past a county fire station on the way to a fire, and vice versa. Folks don't care what department shows up to save their home. They just want someone to show up and save their home. So I think we put aside those territorial things pretty well. And Chief will help educate us about that as we go through, as we serve the next 2 years.
Yeah, there's a lot of little pockets and areas where things are a little different, but it ultimately is what is best for our customers, our citizens, and we try to provide the closest resource in the time of need. We operate our facilities we've got 3 fire stations, one downtown on South Broadway, one out across from I keep wanting to call them Frank Shute, but they've changed names, but out there by the Cherry Blossom Road. What are they?
Cummins.
Dan Cummins, that's right. Gotcha. But then also Station 3 on 101 Airport Road, which is our administrative building as well. Code enforcement operates out of West Clinton Street. They share the building with the water company, or I'm sorry, the old water company building with electrical and building inspection. They share that facility. Our structure, like the mayor alluded to, we recently did change our structure in the form of we always had one assistant chief, and the fire marshal was a little different rank structure within. We got those on an equal footing, level playing field as far as really responsibility sharing and avenues of operation were much more simplified with this rank structure. So we have the chief, which is myself, assistant chief of operations, which is Chief Gifford, assistant chief of prevention. Still kind of goes by the fire marshal at times, depending on the setting. Is Assistant Chief Thompson. Our fire inspector was Matthew Marshall. He took a fire marshal job in Frankfort. So that spot is currently vacant, but we hope to fill that once our staffing levels get in a little better setting. And then our administrative assistant is Donna also, and she keeps us all straight and keeps us all flowing in the right direction. But we couldn't do what we do without her. We recently, Mayor, how long, Donna? 4 years ago, roughly, 4 years ago, we added that position. So we operated for a long time without an administrative assistant, and it just taxed us as a department to really focus on the task at hand. So her addition 4 years ago changed things drastically for us. Within code enforcement, we have 2 officers and 1 part-time administrative assistant.
Willow, we're still kind of putting this structure into place, and I can tell you that Donna has been a key piece of the administrative solution out there. The fire department asked for a high-level administrative assistant for years, and we just couldn't find a way to fund it. But it was a really good move, and it's made the fire department more efficient and allowed the chief and the assistant chiefs to do what they need to do. You'll notice code enforcement, we're still only at 2 code officers and a part-time administrative assistant. Code enforcement has asked for several consecutive years that that part-time administrative assistant be made full-time. And that's something that we had to work through some personnel issues. And now I think we're better prepared to consider that step for the next budget, Tim. Sorry, Chief, go ahead.
And to just give some faces with some of those names, that's our command staff, and including Donna, the administrative assistant, which you got them on the screen for the Zoom meeting, so you can connect those dots already. But just a slide there. On the operations side of things, we operate 3 shifts, 24 hours on, 48 hours off, all year long. We run 17 personnel per shift when we're fully staffed. Our minimum staffing level does allow us to drop down to 13 per day, and we total of 51 firefighters throughout all 3 of those shifts. So 3 shifts of 17 people gives us 51. We're currently short staffed at the moment. We're getting ready to start a recruit class on the 15th to work on our staffing level, but that in essence is, when we're fully staffed, what we look like. The 13 is basically allows for vacation, sick time, training, things of that nature. We'll allow essentially 4 people off per day and not have to hire back overtime.
And Chief, just to emphasize, both for Mark's benefit and for Willow's benefit, this is one of the key bedrock philosophies of our fire department, that we do our best to run at least 4 men on a truck. That is our goal, and we try to staff to that level. We rarely meet that standard, Willow, on a daily basis, between vacations, sick leave, other things that make it difficult. We sometimes will drop down and we have to run with 3 on the truck. But it is our standard for our department that we strive for, to keep 4 men on the truck. And you will hear us talk about that into the future, how hard that is sometimes to maintain. We will not go down to 2 men on the truck. We just won't run. Is that right, Chief?
That is correct. Yeah, we have things in place that would prevent that from happening. And we may have a rare occurrence during the middle of the day, somebody gets sick, something happens, they need to leave, that we would temporarily reposition those people to another company. But as soon as somebody got in here to help cover that shift, we would get that company back up. 2 people on an apparatus are just not efficient, not effective. It's a safety matter for us, so we will not drop below 3 on a truck.
Question, would this necessitate, if you had to drop down, would it necessitate the interlocal as well?
No, it would still stand. They would, in that time that we may be short, for most of our guys, if we page out or we need somebody in the rare circumstance like I described it, within an hour, 2 tops, we would have that company back up. Our battalion chief would communicate with the on-duty battalion chief at the county and say, something happens, go ahead and roll us 2 companies instead of the 1. And, we would work through that situation like that.
Okay.
One of the basic safety principles, Willow, is on a fire scene, they can't enter a burning structure unless they're, I think, 4 men on site. Eric, you have to have 2 men in and 2 men out at a minimum before you can even enter a structure, ostensibly to even save someone.
You may hear it referred to as 2 in, 2 out throughout the fire committee settings or something, some of the conversations, but NFPA does establish a guideline for us in order to make entry into a structure that is on fire. There are a couple little exemptions, a rescue or an incipient stage fire, but ideally if it's requiring a hand line, most likely should require two personnel in, 2 personnel out for a safety mechanism.
Hey,
But like I
Chief.
say, this rarely, yes, sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Again, dropping below 13 rarely happens. We have mandatory overtime slots. We have 2 positions each day. So if we're at minimum staffing due to being short staffed, vacation, somebody calls in sick, we already have a couple people on the bubble, so to speak, to fill that gap. If we got to go deeper than those 2 spots, we've got a measure in place called emergency overtime, and we can hold people back in. So sometimes it's not popular, but we got to do what we got to do to maintain minimum staffing for our citizens. And again, really the only time we ever experience that is if it's in the middle of the day and somebody just is sick and can't hang out long enough to let somebody get in there to fill their spot. Maybe a couple times a year is about the most we see that encounter. Mark, what'd you have?
Yeah. How many members again are in this new recruit class that's getting ready to start?
We're currently 7 short. We actually went 10 deep on the list. We had one guy had a knee injury, backed out. We had a couple pull out for various reasons, but we're actually hiring 7 or 6. We have 7 slots. So even though we're starting a class, we are limited and still have 1 vacancy. We expect another to leave potentially, but we didn't feel like there was anything there left on the list to bring up to fill that 7th spot.
And so there's going to be 6 members in this recruit class that's getting ready to start.
Yes, sir.
And then what's the length of time for the training / recruiting, or I'm sorry, the class that's getting ready to start? What's the length of time before those members can actually get out
We do our own recruit class, and it's a 14-week recruit class.
Okay.
And I've got a slide that'll touch on some of that in a bit, but it is 14 weeks, and we get them, state certified. That by the time they get out of that, they're hazmat. This class will be hazmat and confined space tech certified. We're going to try to give it a go again now that hopefully we can get through some of the COVID issues. We cut our last class a little short because of COVID was making a hard charge on us a little bit. So we cut it short by a couple weeks, and we're going to have them get caught up on like the confined space tech portion of the class and hazmat. Just kind of give you an overview of all that we just discussed as far as the positions, command, code, and firefighting staffing. We have a total of 59 folks on the fire department.
And it is to this head count total. Willow, every year you approve a personnel ordinance as a part of the budget document. And that personnel ordinance establishes maximum head counts for each of our departments. The police department is getting close to getting back up to their full authorized head count today. They've been several officers short. As you can see, the fire department is 7 officers short, but will come within 1 of our current head count maximum. And then it's to these totals that I will propose at the next meeting that we add 5 firefighters to next year's budget so that they can begin over a 3-year period to grow that head count to what we think is more reasonable for a city our size.
Administrative duties, I mean, essentially whatever comes down the line we have to deal with, but this is primarily on a daily basis a lot of what we have to manage. I know there's a lot of content there, but just managing the budget, the maintenances, data entry for the state and city. So a lot of things there. Heavily involved on a daily basis with the procurement system, creating POs, making payment requests, things of that nature. But essentially, we have a big umbrella that we have to take care of. Other than that, just annual things that we are required to help take care of. All our members, as part of being on a hazmat team, have to have health physicals each year, and we also conduct fitness assessments twice a year. We utilize Georgetown College. We have a firefighter that has worked with them to develop a program that helps measure us, and we've created the baseline and had the second assessment. COVID's kind of hampered the continuation of that to some degree, but we do also do a secondary physical assessment. A lot of our equipment, our apparatus, things on the apparatus have to be tested annually, and that's what you see the bulk of the next of that list to being, which is our air packs. We have to test those annually. Each individual has a face piece individually assigned to them. They have to be fit tested annually to make sure they got a good secure fit. Our apparatus have to be pump tested annually. All our fire hose that we own, we test it. Our ground ladders, our aerial ladders all have to be tested also. We conduct fairly extensive drivers training each year to meet or exceed what the state would ever require of us. And, some more just fire gear inspections and rope inspections. List goes on and on, but those are some of the requirements that are met every year. And some of the governing agencies or bodies that recommend all this and require us to do this are, obviously the city, the state. ISO heavily impacts how we operate, just as well as NFPA and OSHA. They pretty much set the standards, and we got to comply, or at least make every effort possible to comply with most of them. And as of right now, I know the mayor's proud of it, and we are as well. Our current ISO class rating is a 2. 1's the best you can get. We're knocking on the door, and I would expect that they would be back in within the next year or two to rate us again. And but currently we have a 2, and we hope to at least maintain that the next time we get evaluated.
This ISO thing, Willow, is a big deal. That is directly how the fire insurance portion of your homeowner's insurance is calculated. It's by the value of the dwelling and the ISO rating of the local fire department, because that ISO rating takes into account water pressure, condition of water lines, hydrants, hydrant flow, our training, our apparatus. It's a really comprehensive look. When I became mayor 30 years ago, our ISO rating was a 7, and we were transitioning. We were still in that period of transitioning from a volunteer department to a full-time fire department. We reduced that ISO rating to 4, and remarkably, most of that big drop was due to record keeping. The prior administrations hadn't kept good records of training, and when we reconstructed those records, we could achieve a better ISO rating. And then we've chiseled our way down to where 2% of all the fire departments in the state of Kentucky have an ISO rating of 2 or better. So I frequently say that we have an elite fire department, and it's proven by the rankings.
Yeah, and it's essentially the report card of your fire department, your water company, and your dispatch center. Those are the 3 organizations they look at and kind of grade to develop a rating. Heavily involved in the public. We're public oriented, service oriented. A lot of just just outreach and hands-on with some of the community aspects. And that's one of the things that COVID has really hampered for us. We didn't get to have our safety day. The Toys for Tots giveaway still took place, but it obviously had some modifications. The chili cook-off helped support that Toys for Tots program, and we didn't get the opportunity to have that this year. But we've always got typically someone or in leadership Scott County, either as a student or on the board, and we currently still have that. But we've continuously always got something going on with the public. And currently we've partnered up with the Scott County Public Library. We have a little food drive competition for the Amen House. So we're always trying to do something good for the public. And this list could go on as well forever, I think. So
I think our council and administration are really proud of the forward-facing approach that our fire department has with the community. They're very engaged. And the other thing that won't show up on this list, but it's very important to us, is I regularly get compliments from people about when they see our firefighters, they see them in public, they see them wearing masks. And we get calls about that. We get calls when they notice people not wearing masks. And what always pleases me is when the calls obviously show that people notice the difference, that the Georgetown firefighters are wearing masks and their behavior is appropriate. And that to me is important as anything on this list.
Yep. Our guys do a good job, do what they asked of them, and we're pleased with. I know it's tough for them and it's a challenge for them, but they do what's asked of them, and we're very appreciative as administration as well. Perhaps one of the most important things on that previous list was that we deliver Santa to various locations, so all the kids get to see Santa Claus, and we light the Christmas tree with Santa. So that may be one of the most important ones. But moving on, again, heavily involved in various boards and committees within the community, with the school system, the traffic committee, Board of Adjustment, code enforcement, technical review, business park authority, again, leadership Scott County, WEDCO, safety committees, task force. So very, very heavily involved on that front as well. And just moving on to even a little larger scale outside of our community, we are members and sit on actually some executive boards within some of these organizations, which is, this International Association of Fire Chiefs. Currently, I have been for, I think, 6 years now, the secretary for the Kentucky Association of Fire Chiefs, Central Kentucky Association of Fire Chiefs, and the list goes on there as well. But very, very network oriented, forward thinking. Again, we don't claim to know everything, and we work with various organizations and other chiefs across the state and across the country in some aspects to help our organization become better. On the prevention side of things, they are obviously very busy, and one of their biggest focuses, as far as for the assistant chief there, is code enforcement. That's a tall task, and they rise to the occasion each day. And it's just, there's always something going on within code enforcement. That's definitely a challenge. But fire prevention, we review each plan, we sign off, we locate the hydrants in the plans where we want them, and that's a big part of what they do. They conduct fire inspections, pre-plans, issue burn permits, things of that nature. So again, it's a long list, and Tim, I'll ask if you want to dive into anything on that front that you want to be specific on.
Not particularly, unless Mark or Willow have questions about something. The inspection side of it, Chief was talking about Matthew Marshall, our former fire inspector. Just with him being gone right now, obviously that's going to play into a factor on some of the inspection side, but everything else is rolling right along. But if you have any questions about anything on there, let me know.
What Mark is aware of this. Willow, we've previously, several years ago, we had code enforcement aligned with the police department. Administratively, they were aligned there. And kind of the mindset was there. We took advantage of Tim Thompson's expertise and interest. And we're going, we think this alignment between code enforcement and the fire department is a very natural fit. Both have to do with fire safety, building safety, code enforcement and fire safety are so closely linked together that we think this makes perfect sense. There aren't that many cities that have done it exactly this way. Paducah has done it this way in a very, very thorough way. And we think that this is a correct path for us. And we think that code enforcement has a really good home under the fire department, under Tim's leadership.
And particular slide there for code enforcement just gives you a little overview of how the flow would look for them. They would obviously notify someone of a violation. Hopefully they get a remedy from that. If not, they move on to enforcement and just see the problem through. We are proud of the fact that there's certain areas in town where properties have been cleaned up, even in the county. We're not handcuffed to the city limits on this aspect. So even out in the county, out Payne's Depot at the railroad crossing, that place there has been rehabilitated, and that's a direct reflection of code enforcement's actions. The house there on South Broadway next to the piece of property that was purchased last night had some issues for a while. Code enforcement worked with that the property owner, and I think cleaned up the property and been another success story. So list could go on some of the properties that have been cleaned up and rehabilitated, and that's code enforcement working right there.
Chief, also, as we worked on code enforcement under this particular structure, we've just been able to do better work and focus the resources where code enforcement truly is an example of protecting the few from the many. When someone has a really significant code enforcement issue next door, it's a quality of life issue, and one that as we grow, and a phenomena that's really kind of surprised me, as so many people have moved to Georgetown over the last 20 years. What we've learned is they bring with them a lot of their habits and ways of doing things that they may have gotten used to back home, wherever back home was. So we have a constant battle against people that think it's okay to park a car out in the front yard, or the property may be kept in one way when it doesn't really meet the community standards today. So we have a huge education job to do, but we think really headed in the right direction once we can get some better staffing arranged for Tim and his department. We also, Willow, have worked for several years to put together what we call an administrative hold ordinance or an administrative hold situation where if you as a builder or a developer come to building inspection and want a building permit to build a new house, if you have not paid your property taxes, if you have any outstanding liens with the city, you are not supposed to get a building permit. You have to get right with every one of our departments before any of our departments will provide you with a permit or a step forward. That safety net isn't perfect yet, but through CityWorks, we're attempting to make an electronic check to where you simply can't go forward with the process until the preceding process is complete. So that's something that Tim's been working on. We've been working on administratively, but this administrative hold concept has really helped us with compliance. Even though it may be a bit after the fact, we get compliance. Is that fairly stated, Tim?
Yes, sir.
We're working on it.
On the operations side of things, our guys are here on duty every day, just, able and willing to respond to any fire, rescue, medical, hazardous condition or hazardous material call that may arise. Or if somebody calls in the dispatch and has a problem and they can't find anybody else to send, they typically send the fire department. So we get a ton of calls for a variety of things, but primarily, obviously, we train and focus on our fire response, our rescue and medical responses are primarily what we do each and every day. The hazardous conditions calls are more like your fuel spills, carbon monoxide leaks, things of like that nature, and those are very common as well. And hazardous materials. Everyone on the department is a hazardous material technician. We are actively members of the Northern Kentucky Hazmat Response Team as a department, and we do house a response vehicle for that organization. Clearly a laundry list of calls and things we have to train and be prepared for. But
could you help? It's always good for me to hear it and good for Mark to hear it, and Willow definitely needs to hear. We all get, as elected officials, we all get questions about why do so many fire trucks show up at everything that goes on? And you'll be asked that, Willow, as a committee member. So it's something that I have Chief Colson and the assistant chiefs talk with us about fairly frequently so that we're able to answer those questions. And you've either gotten them or you've wondered yourself, or if you haven't gotten them, you will get them. So Chief, you might just walk through that explanation for all of our benefit again.
Yeah, depending on the run type or the call type, we have a standard response. So a medical emergency, it typically just gets one engine company. That would be a difficulty breathing, chest pain, things of those natures, just one company. And a code 500, which is a heart attack requiring CPR and respirations assistance and an overdose, we do send a battalion chief with that company. Moving on up, you would have 2 engines and a battalion chief, or 2 engines and a ladder, depending on the nature of the run. So like a vehicle accident, the in-district engine would go, our ladder truck serves as our rescue truck. So we get our engine, our ladder, and a battalion chief, all for a 1046. It could be 1 vehicle, it could be 2, 3, 4 vehicles, and that's our standard response. If it's worse in nature or we got more information, then the battalion chief can grow the call response, ask another engine to go if needed. But we just feel like, based on, and every department operates that way, the certain call types, you want to stack your deck to be in a favorable position to win to win, and we can always, fold if we don't need those additional apparatus. But we have them coming just in case we do have an extrication or things of that nature. A lot of your alarm drops, that'll get 2 engines, a ladder, and a battalion chief. If it turns into a structure fire, it gets 3 engines, ladder, battalion chief, a county unit. So just depends on the magnitude of the call, and kind of to some degree an industry standard on a common response to give you enough personnel on scene to handle care for the patient. You got to stabilize a vehicle, perhaps. You got one that's running incident command, giving oversight and giving direction to the crews on scene. So I'm not sure if you can tell in the back screen on this slide, but that's the train derailment south of us a couple of years ago, 3 years ago, I guess now. But that's an uncommon response for us, luckily. But when things like that happen, we don't have enough resources. So it's, again, I would just say it's a common industry response standard is why you see that. Just allows us to have the right personnel on scene to deal with the situation. We typically, clear them as soon as they can, but we like having our guys in a position to be successful and give the patients and any citizen or customer the best possible care that we can.
And we support the type of response that we give. But I know you'll be asked questions about it, and I wanted you to be conversant from the chief's point of view about why we respond the way we do.
On the training front, we do kind of have it broken into segments. Our recruits, that's our foundation. We got to get it right there to help give us something to build on, solid. And I think we do that. After they're out of recruit class, they're on a probationary state for their first year. And then they break out in shift training. We got engines and trucks to get them released on. Officer development has been a focus of ours for over the years, and even more so recently. We a couple weeks ago, we've always tried to have a chief's retreat. We get the command staff, including battalion chiefs, together, just iron out policies that need to be changed, just reviewing certain things. And we did it all via Zoom for 3 days. So it was not our normal retreat, but one of the things that we focused on, and we're rolling in a positive direction, and it's just development. We're a young department. We recognize that. Most our guys, firefighters, are fairly new, and we're just trying to give them the best possible path to having a good, strong career and hopefully remaining here in Georgetown. But we spent 3 days really focusing on processes and programs to ensure that happens. But a variety of training aspects. As Mark asked earlier, our recruit class is 14 weeks. We put them through a physical assessment, physical fitness program as a part of that. Typically, when they get done with this class, they're probably going to, if not be in the best shape of their life, real close to it. So, hopefully they continue that, because they got to, some of us were entered in the hazardous system that required 20 years. These guys have to work 27 years now. So, fitness and health is a big part of being able to last that long. So we're trying to give them a good, strong foundation on that aspect as well. But when they're done with recruit class, they'll be 400-hour state certified, and they'll have set through the engine operator course. They'll be IFSAC, firefighter 1 and 2 certified, hazmat technician, confined space technician, certified to the rope operations level, and various NIMS certifications. So
Eric,
a lot gets.
Eric, where do
Go ahead.
most of your trainings take place? Are they mostly out of Georgetown and using state facilities, or can you do most everything in town?
We, as far as recruit class, we take care of most of that here. We do have some little facility we built out back that does give us some things that we used to not have, and we used to have to run out to the county and train some. But we utilize a little facility here, still utilize the county, and there are certain things throughout the course of a recruit class that are required that the state teach. So it's kind of a combination, but 90% of it is done in-house and at our facility.
Chief, do you anticipate further joint recruit classes as you've done in the past with Frankfurt?
We'll always evaluate that alignment, their timing with our timing. We still have a good relationship with them and don't know that we wouldn't, but right now, this class doesn't align with anything they got going on. And when we have a class of 6 or 7 of our own, it's good to just focus on our guys and take that task at hand and make it the best that we can.
Okay.
But we have Willow, just for your information, probably 3 or 4, maybe even 5 recruit classes in combination with Frankfurt Fire Department. We would host a portion of it and do the training, and they would host and do a portion of the training, and they always worked out well. It was a benefit to both departments, I think, but those schedules don't always align. Once they're on their probationary period, we still have high expectations for them. Various tests, over our SOPs and SOGs, we quiz them and expect them to learn the streets. A lot of people we're hiring these days, they haven't spent a lot of time in Georgetown, if any. So it's good for them to know the area. So we have developed a street exam. Our engine release process is very thorough. It consists of an orientation. Actually, we have a panel that is put together. It's 3 members and the individual's battalion chief that evaluates the members, just truck orientation, just how it functions, components of the truck, tools that are on it and how they operate. And then they perform a variety of skills that are pump in nature, different hand lines, flowing the ladder truck, a variety of those things. And then they actually have to go out and drive to a number of the streets that are in our test bank to show that they know how to get there. So just that's a process or a program that's been in place now for a few years, and we're growing more processes like that, as I alluded to earlier. And during that probationary period, they're required to get their EMT if they're not already certified. This last class out of the previous class that they're right at their year mark. 4 out of the 6 we had to send to EMT class, which was new for us. Up to that point, our requirement had been that you had to be an EMT pretty much to be hired. You could apply, but with the way the process worked, it was very difficult to get hired not being an EMT. So we just saw that it was time for us to change as an organization. The draft pool, so to speak, of certified EMTs just wasn't good. So, we adjusted how we operate, and now we try to find the best candidate possible and teach them the EMT skills. The Frankfurt actually did host an EMT class. That's where we sent our 4 guys out of the most recent class to be certified. And it's added expense to us. We got to manage staffing while those folks are in class and on shift. So it is challenging, but it was a necessity.
And Chief, just emphasize that EMT during the probationary period is a hard requirement.
Yeah, it's very challenging for those guys because they're still learning to be firemen and got high expectations still on that front, but yet they've got to focus on the EMT certification also.
And we don't waver on that.
They don't have it at the end of the first year, then unless there's a very good reason why, then they have some employment issues. So, officer development. One of the things we do, our firefighters ride up as captains, our captains ride up as battalion chiefs. So in that process, we've always had a little bit of a process or program in place to obtain the 120 hours to act up as captain and act up as battalion chief. These are technically some of the focus points that we really dove into in our retreat. And the 120 hours as acting captain was determined to be good. We're going to define what needs to be done more so during that 120 hours to give direction and help our captains along in that aspect. Our officer development program typically is a 2-week program. We still support that, want to continue that. It's been a little difficult financially. That's overtime expenses, and we do see a little bit of tweaking we need to do within that program, but we do want to continue that once we're financially able. And then acting battalion chief, this is probably where we focused our attention mostly. That 48 is going to go to 96 hours most likely, and outline what is done in that 96 hours and give direction to the battalion chiefs, training the captains. But
Can you help us understand, you mentioned ride up time, or the acting time. Can you explain that for the?
Yes, sir. So if a captain on each engine or ladder truck for stay, there's a captain, which is the supervisor, and 3 firefighters if they're fully assigned. So the captain's obviously in charge. If the captain is off, we need somebody to ride up in that position that's capable of making decisions and has been educated to some degree during that 120 hours. The captain is on duty, supervising that individual, teaching that individual, making actual calls with that individual, riding as captain, making the decisions that are necessary, and the captain would, step in if needed, but kind of critique everything once the call's over. Good job. You may consider this, you may do that, but it's ultimately preparing people to be put in a position that they are hopefully comfortable with. But acting officer is a firefighter filling in for that captain when that captain's off. When the battalion chief is off, we need one of those captains to bump up, and they'll ride as the battalion chief for that day. The battalion chief is the shift supervisor, so the battalion chief oversees 3 engines and a ladder company. So they essentially are overseeing 16 other individuals potentially. So we, again, firefighters got to fill that captain void. Captain has to fill that battalion chief void when they're either off sick, training, or vacation.
And we're compensating for ride up time, Chief, is that correct?
When they fill that position, they get a 5% bump in pay. It's not a lot, but it does, there are additional responsibilities. They have, they're given oversight. They have to do run reports and documentation. So compensation for that is, we felt was necessary. And that's something only been in place just a couple of years. On the technician side of things, again, we're called to deal with just about any issue, and some of those issues, we can't charge in without, being well trained. So, emergency medical technician, hazardous materials, confined space, rope, trench, swift water collapse, and even car seat technicians. If you need a car seat put in, we're your guys and gals. But we focus on this, and it's a challenge. As many folks as we have had retire or move on to other departments, we always try to restock as much as possible in these categories. But the foundation has to be firefighting first. So we're trying to cram a lot of firefighting knowledge and stuff into these guys, and still try to grow in this area also. Our resources, kind of throughout the conversations, we've talked a little bit about these, but your battalion chief is your shift supervisor. We operate 3 engines and a ladder each day. We have an additional reserve apparatus in the way of an engine and a ladder. We have a little brush truck, our hazmat truck, and 3 boats. They're all different types of boats used for specific reasons, but we do have 3 boats in our fleet. Some of the conversations, and I think what the mayor will get into with some of the upcoming conversations as far as our need for staffing and stations and things of that nature. What helps guide us in some of those conversations is NFPA. And technically ISO follows a lot of the NFPA standards, and they run parallel. And one of the ways they look at things is within each station for the city as it is, they look for an engine within every 1.5 mile distance. I'm not sure if you can see the slide real well, but the colored areas, the blue, kind of the yellow, and the pink, indicates where our 1.5 mile radiuses are from those particular 3 stations that we operate out of. So you can see there's some areas that are deficient and in need of a little attention. But one thing I will say on our guys, I mean, it also is measured in response times and things of that nature. And our guys I'll put them up against anybody as far as getting out the door as quickly as possible. We've got CAD screens at each station, so they see when a new call is coming in, and most generally they're out the door or in the truck when the tones are going off. So our response times are something to be proud of, which does ultimately help our citizens and our customers. But as far as a distance and the way ISO or NFPA would look at our coverage area, that's what our 1.5 mile radius looks like. On a ladder company, they look at a 2.5 mile radius, and we only operate 1 ladder truck currently, and it's operated out of the airport road station, and that's its coverage distance.
Eric, I was wondering, since Toyota is kind of a mini city, do they have their own firefighting capability built in?
Yes, ma'am. They do. They actually have their own department. They actually have a system similar to ours. They work 24 on, 48 off. Not exactly sure their staffing levels at the moment, but they do take care of their essential, their baseline stuff. If it's on fire, then we're going, and we've been out there numerous times to assist them. But they take care of your fire alarms, your medical calls for the most part, and all that kind of stuff. But if it is actually a fire, we are dispatched to that. They've got an engine, they've got a ladder, they've got a rescue, they've got a decent a fleet out there. I'm not sure how much of it necessarily gets staffed, but they do function as a fire department on their own.
Thank you.
Willow, something that this committee will have to take up is the need for a 4th fire station. The need is already evident. And the chiefs are beginning, they've started internal processes to look at that necessary force station. The assessment that we recently started, received word about will be a part of that process as well. But in the not distant future, within just a handful of years, we're going to have a serious plan that looks at another fire station, which is a significant capital investment, one that we will probably undertake with the county as a joint project if we can co-locate a fire department and ambulance department in this area of need. So we'll have the capital expense for the building. We'll have a whole new set of apparatus that have to go into the building at significant expense. And if we have not anticipated the personnel needed, the day that station opens, it will require at least 12 additional firefighters. So that is the big thing that's out there for us, is we're working toward consideration of a fourth fire station and how we make that real.
Much like the 1.5 mile radius or distance from the stations, they measure that response time like I was talking about. This map shows a 4-minute response time, which is what ISO and NFPA look for as your initial company to arrive on scene from the time of dispatch. So it's very similar to the 1.5 mile radius. It gets stretched out a little bit, but those two are measuring sticks, so to speak, with how they feel like our stations and staffing should be spread out. And this is kind of the combination of all three of those maps, and the red would indicate where our deficiencies are in relation to the city limits. So we've had some growing pains over the years. Technically, this is all because of growth. In 1996, you can kind of see we were just shy of 14,000 people, 1,100 responses. At that time, we were operating out of 3 stations 24 years ago. We have not built a station in 24 years outside of rebuilding the one downtown. Back in 96 is when they did grow the staffing. They staffed a ladder truck at that time. In 06 was the last time I can recall that we did any staffing adjustments. That's when we got what they call a SAFER grant, and we're able to go to 4 people per truck, and helped our staffing in that way. At that time, the population was, a little over 20,000, 1,600 responses, and again, 3 stations. Currently, we're 35,000 conservatively, I believe. We're hovering 3,000 responses annually, and still operating out of 3 stations. So we're, while the city has grown, and we've done some things over the years as a department to keep up with a little bit of that growth, maybe not as much as we needed to. And I think that, like the mayor's stated, we see the need for a Station 4. We see the need for the 15 additional firefighters, and the next 3 years, a plan to get 5 each year is much supported by this organization. And partly, and as I mentioned earlier, the current experience that we have within our organization, we have 16 members of our 55, technically, if you take code enforcement out of it and just look at the firefighters. Out of the 55, we have 16 members with 10 years or more of service, which leaves us with 39, and this would count our new hires, our vacant positions, but 39 with less than 10 years of service. So we're a young department. We realize that we're trying to tackle as much as we can and work as hard as we can to prepare these guys, but it's definitely been a challenge, and you can't replace experience. I mean, training takes you a long way and gives you some comforts, but you can't replace experience, and we lack it at the moment. And hopefully, the pay's been a big portion of why our experience levels are down, and retirements. As you see, since 2010, we've gone through 52 individuals on this out of this department. 30 have retired and 22 have moved on to other departments, to other career paths, just primarily due to financial reasons. So we appreciate the first step. We know there's additional steps, and we're patiently waiting. I guess I should say, but it's the growth is obviously the big reason for the needs as well.
We've been pointing out for a number of years that our fire department is going through the greatest transformation in modern history that we ever have. We have had so much experience retire in the last 5 to 10 years. And we've brought on a bunch of talented new firefighters. But Chief Colson is right. We have a young department, and they really need good training, and they need great leadership. This is the time when this department will respond, but they're really having to provide some leadership because they're getting progressively so much younger. And we can come out of this in great shape, but administratively, we've got to provide the support and understand the position that these 3 chiefs are in.
And currently, there are out of the 55, so to speak, we only have 3 that currently are eligible for retirement. So we don't have any big groups that can leave us anytime necessarily soon. But so we ran through a lot of retirements there for a while, and a steady dose of the resignations for leaving for Lexington. We'd see a trend of 3 or 4 or 5 years out of folks, and they would go elsewhere to make more money. But we gave them a good, great, solid foundation that somebody else is benefiting from now. And it's, if you're a farm team of a baseball organization, we got a bright future, but we got to keep them within our organization to bring home the championship, so to speak, instead of trading them off or seeing them go elsewhere. But we do have a bright future. We got a great group of guys. Even the leaders that we do have with some of the youth you got a solid fire department, and I want to, even though we're young, I want you to have comfort in that. And just future needs. Obviously, we've talked a little bit, and you're already aware of the pay adjustment. Currently, we do not have a training officer. We manage that all internally, lean on guys, lean on our battalion chiefs currently to help take care of that stuff. Even the recruit class, we have, we lean on an individual that focuses on that and, gives it structure and makes sure everything is going according to plan. A lot of one of the things we have is, we've got good equipment where, not a lot of people have 4 people per truck. We have a lot of good things. One thing that most departments have around us that we don't have is that training officer. So that's a definite need in the next, I would hope soon, budget or 2 that we could accomplish to help develop this young organization and to give it a little more structure on the training side. Again, increase in training budget. These guys are motivated, and COVID has really cramped our style. We do a lot of training as an organization. Internally, we train a lot. The state requires 100 hours to recertify annually, and ISO likes to see 200 hours out of each individual. We kind of set 200 as our standard, and we have guys and gals that exceed 300 hours each year. And we push, we want them to focus on training, and they always do. But COVID has, we do a lot of training inside, and that's been difficult because we've limited it to 2 companies and a variety of things. But we also send people to outside training, to fire schools and conferences and stuff a lot. And we just haven't had an opportunity to do that because of our COVID concerns. So when that door opens, you're going to have a lot of people ready to get out and run. And I want to be able to support that as much as I can, because they have lost out on a lot of opportunities over the past year. So so an increase in training budget to help compensate for some of the struggles that we've had with COVID. As we talked about earlier, we struggle getting the inspections done that we need to get done with the staff that we have already. With the growth of the city and what's required of us from the NFPA and ISO standards, we're not meeting their expectation. I'll just be honest in saying that, but we try the best we can. We do the best we can, but in order to do better, we would need more staffing. I know we've talked about a Station 4, and with the growth and the new leg of the bypass, and as you saw in our coverage areas, you've got that northeast and kind of the northwest quadrants that are showing some needs for stations. So I understand got to take some baby steps and in the growth process, but don't lose sight of that you're going to need a Station 5, not too awful distant future either. So staffing for those stations are obviously a reoccurring expense that the mayor alluded to, and that's a big challenge to tackle with council and the finances.
Keith,
We have a fleet.
I only recently brought myself to say Station 4 out loud.
I know.
I'm not even ready to say that other one out loud yet.
Well, that's why I'm saying it.
Okay.
But I know but just it's going to be there somewhere down the road, and I'm not saying the need is there myself at the moment, but definitely four is definitely there, but 5 I think could fast approach. Maintaining the fleet plan, our fleet's relatively new, but you blink and it's, like I said, the ladder truck's 6 years old already. I'm putting together a group of individuals to help get our engine and truck spec fine-tuned and developed, and I'm going to work with manufacturers to kind of give us as accurate of a price as we can get without bidding them out, and develop some options for a fleet plan, as far as replacing some of the older ones, and as we grow, what some options might look like for us. But those aren't cheap purchases. The ladder truck is $1 million+. The engine is $600,000. So those are clearly capital expenses, and we try to extend the life as much as possible, but we also have to maintain a little bit of reserve fleet to give us something reliable to get into if something needs a routine maintenance or is broken and needs repaired. But we, not too long ago, were in a situation where anytime we needed anything, if something needed fixed on our end, we had to borrow a truck from the county, and did that numerous times. Even Lexington had to borrow trucks from them because our fleet had been neglected for so long. And I do think, some of the more recent councils and the mayor on getting us in as strong of a fleet as I've never known us to have in my 20 years here.
The last truck we bought, Mark, you'll recall, we anticipated that 2 years out, and we set aside funds in 2 different budget years to be able to buy that truck. Because they're very, very expensive purchases.
I'm in the process of, working on just a comprehensive plan and just being as transparent as I can be and providing as much information as I can about our organization and where we would like to go. And some of the bullet points above that are obviously included. I will say in the last fire committee, we discussed this briefly. Battalion Chief Assistant Chief Gifford has kind of worked with some vendors and narrowed down his ideas of what is the best for us, and we look to go at least put out the bid and see what the pricing looks like. But we did apply for a FEMA grant last year. We were unsuccessful for ballistic gear, and according to NFPA 3000, we need that equipment to actively respond and participate in any active shooter or hostile environment. So we currently, unfortunately, it's a sad point of affairs that we're having the conversation and really need this equipment, but it's the time that we live in and the world that we live in that we need body armor for firefighters. Once we determine how much money we need, I can eat up some of the cost, I think, within our current budget, but I'm probably going to need help if we were able to pull the trigger and get this before July 1. I anticipate needing a little help in doing this. So I'll keep y'all posted. I'll give you all the insight I can once we get it, but the timelines, I'd like to get it done sooner rather than later. Obviously, this is a safety concern, and we would like to move as quickly as possible now that we knew we're not getting the grant, but it is a costly venture.
Chief,
Yes.
I need to step away. I have a couple things I need to take care of that just came up.
Okay.
All right. It's nice to meet you all. Nice to meet you, Willow. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Y'all have a good day, Mayor.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Mark.
It's a life of assistant chief. Something's always coming up, but we're pretty much done. But ultimately, it takes and we're blessed to have Mayor Prather doing all that he's done over the past few years and helping us get where we're at. Council is right there with him, and we. I don't think we're drowning like the picture alludes, but we finally got our nose above water. We can breathe on our own a little bit, but we still need help to get where we need to be. And that's, just financial planning. Our recruitment and retention is a big component of that. We're forecasting to spend just in overtime expenses for a recruit class on our own, $17,000. The time, effort, and energy put into those guys and ladies are, it's difficult when 3 or 4 years down the road they want to go somewhere else, and I hope that we're circumventing that now, and our retaining aspect with the finances, but we invest a lot of time, effort, and energy and money into a lot of things, and we're going to continue to do that, and hopefully our outcome's a little different. But we just ask for your all's help in any way that you all can to help us financially support our organization. And that's kind of the end of what I had. I know we ran long, and I apologize for that, but I just kind of wanted to, I know that's a lot of information to cram in there and a lot of discussion. So, I just encourage you to call me anytime you have questions, shoot me an email or whatever you need to do. But, we look forward to working with this fire committee, the mayor and the new council to keep making the city better.
I do
And-
have one question, Eric. We talked on the phone, I don't know, maybe a couple of weeks ago about the COVID vaccination process with the firefighters. And at that time, it was a little disappointing and the compliance was around 20 to 25%. I wonder if more have agreed to take the vaccination. It's a gift of a safety issue, not only for themselves, but for the community. How do things stand currently?
Some of it where it's gotten to, they register on their own and do their own thing. We've lost a little bit of control of that. And I don't know that anything has changed, but after that conversation, I did look back and we had 26 individuals and that did get the vaccination out of 59. So that's, to my knowledge, where we ended up was 26 out of 59 if you include code enforcement.
Mm-hmm. Anything we can do to increase that? I think this COVID is going to be around a long time, and it's going to take repeated boosters. And the way the science is moving, this is going to be a problem that we've got to stay on top of to keep our personnel healthy. And if they go do a lift with an elderly person, we want to make sure they've got an N95 mask available as well. Do they have good availability for those types of masks? I would think so.
Yes, we on the vaccination front and on testing and all that kind of stuff, that has all kind of just been voluntary. We support it. We've given them avenues to do that in any way they want to do it as easily as we can help support it, but it still boils down to it's voluntary.
Mm-hmm.
On all our calls, any patient contact, they are required to wear an N95, safety glasses, and gloves. That's on any just general patient contact. If they suspect COVID or COVID positive, then we step it up to a gown and a shield, and got a fairly thorough decon process once we're done with that patient. But yes, every patient contact we have, it is required for our folks to have on an N95.
Thank you.
Well,
And we do have a decent supply on those. We still got in the range of, I think, about 1,000 in stock. A little less, a little more maybe, but we're right around 1,000.
this reluctance that we're seeing all across society, it seems like on the vaccination, there just seems to be some political concerns, and very hopeful that reluctance begins to wick away as more people receive the vaccine without ill effect. Even in our local hospital, I think we only had just over a third initially accept the vaccine. So we'll have to continue to encourage people. And I really hope that there's some initial reluctance that can be resolved with people. But Eric, this has been very informative. I'm sure it's been a nice review for Mark, probably very beneficial for Willow.
Yes, thank you so much. It's been very informative.
And guys, we now have a management structure that gives us a chance to be successful at the fire department, and very pleased with how that's landed. And now we face, I know I put a lot on the council's plate last night, but that's exactly where the next steps in this process really lie. So I look forward to working with each of you council members to make sure you have enough information and we've adequately discussed the proposals that are before you. But today was helpful, Chief. And I too have to excuse myself. I scheduled myself a 2-hour block of time with Judge Covington this morning so we can compare notes on a lot of different initiatives and make sure we're not getting off on left field with what the other has in mind. So I'm going to excuse myself. Typically, Eric will hold us within an hour here because I know in the morning, Mark, you've got responsibilities that you have to jump and run to. So we'll try and be sensitive of your time.
Thank you. Take care, Mayor.
Mr. Chairman, I can leave it to you to close out your meeting. That's you, Mark.
That's it. Yes, we're good. Or I'm good. If Mrs. Hambrick is good, I'm good.
So if anybody, I know I emailed all that. I know it's a lot of content from Ms. Hambrick, but anything you're reviewing that you may have questions about, feel free to give me a call.
Appreciate that.
Tim, good to see you this morning.
Yeah.
And Donna, I didn't speak to you the whole meeting, but good morning to you too.
Good morning, Mayor.
Okay, I'll see you guys later.
Good to see everybody. Thank you so much.
Take care. See you.